Mark Jelinek, and they call me the artistic director of the Southwest Symphony, which is a nice name for conductor. And been conducting the orchestra since 1994. Again, growing up in Hobbs, I went through the orchestra program here and played cello, and I then went on to get 3 degrees in orchestral, teaching orchestra instruments and conducting. So I have a doctorate from Arizona State and master's and bachelor's from Eastern New Mexico. My grandmother had a piano, and she gave it to me when I was about 6 years old. And they brought it over from Odessa, and I started lessons then with Joyce Walker, and took for 12 years with her. And then when I was about 10 years old, that's when you could get into the orchestra. I actually wanted to be in band and be a saxophone player like my mom, but the orchestra came up a year before, and band, 5th grade, 6th grade was band, so I just grabbed the first opportunity and started on viola, and then 2 weeks later switched to cello, which I still play. It's just hard to get those on the airplanes. You have to buy a ticket for them, but you can put them in the luggage, but it's your own risk. But we have a special, they're like a trunk case, a lightweight, at the university where I taught in Pennsylvania. And they only make contact with the cello at pressure points. It's not like fully padded. You just have like a little foam rubber here and down here, and they're wonderful. I mean, I've taken, I have bass crates or trunks as well, and we've taken them to Europe, and you take them out of the case whenever you get there, and they're still in tune. Yeah, a friend of mine said he saw his cello drop 3 stories out of the back of a 747 in one of these, and it was still in tune when he opened it up. Yeah, I know. I don't know if I want to take that risk, though. Frank Chilton. He lives in the Houston area still. And then John Bucholtz. My last year, Mr. Chilton left in between my junior and senior year. And then they had the program one more year after I graduated, and then they got rid of it. I know. And we've tried so hard to get it back. We've come very close, and we had after-school programs. We just can't quite get it in. Because there's kids that would like to play, and I wasn't the only superstar on a string instrument. There were several who played very well, especially via the previous conductor, orchestra conductor at the high school. Chilton was a band saxophone guy, and he did well, having not played a string instrument. The person before was a real good violinist, and he really had some good kids. I actually started Chilton's first year here, so I got to see some of I was only in 5th grade, so I saw the high school kids that had been in under the previous director, and man, there was some really good ones. And I'm still in contact with a few that I was in school with. It started in, I think, 1981. I believe it was a spin-off of First Baptist Church. They gave S.L. Tate used to he was a music minister, gave a Christmas program every year, and he would hire an orchestra, bring in string players that he needed, and then use local wind players. And there was a doctor here, I believe he was from Philadelphia, and he wanted an orchestra for his daughter to play in. So I don't know if he subsidized, but he really got behind it, I think, in a financial way, and got an orchestra started here. And they brought Joe Henry from Eastern New Mexico University down, and he was the first conductor. And he did it for about, until I started. He was like 81 to 94. And then I've been the conductor ever since then. But I know they started, and I was getting ready to go back to get my doctorate, and they were all upset because I moved to Phoenix, and I was too, they said, we want you to come play in the orchestra. So, but I did guest conduct the orchestra a couple of times. I know one was in '91. I'm trying to think when the other time was. They did like a sagebrush symphony kind of thing, and we featured 3 local soloists. So they kind of decided they wanted to make a change, and they asked me if I'd be interested, and I said, of course. I was waiting and hoping that soon the current conductor would retire, because he was up. I don't think he retired, but he'd already left Eastern and was in Montana, and he was kind of out of the picture kind of thing. And I was just waiting for him to say, this is too much, I don't want to do it anymore. So. Well, we try to use as many local players as we can, and that's mainly wind players. There's 1 or 2 string players here in town, and they play. But it is called Southwest Symphony, in that it is a regional group. So we get players from Roswell, Alamogordo, a lot from Midland, Odessa, more, I think mostly from Lubbock, some from Albuquerque. We put out a pretty wide net for players, but you get contacts in each one of these areas, and just keep bringing those people in. We actually have a trombone player that comes from Phoenix, but he used to be in Midland, Odessa, so he said, "Oh, I'd love to keep playing." So we said, "We'd love for you to keep playing." And we have a horn player that comes from Chicago, but her family she has family ties in El Paso, and her sister plays oboe. So is that TMI?
But
it's interesting.
That's the whole thing that some people don't understand, is that these are all professionals.
Yes.
And that they come from the region, but now you're saying as far away as Chicago.
Yeah, it kind of was happenstance. Her sister lives in El Paso, and she said, my sister's a really good horn player. She's going to be in town. Could you use her in the orchestra? And we said, yeah. And she's a phenomenal player. So. Oh.
What's your job?
Well.
Everybody thinks you just stand up there and wave your
arms. No, you do a whole lot more than that. Yeah, you got to know what the music's telling you to do, and you coordinate everything. You pick the tempos, any gradation of tempo, like slowing down, speeding up, abrupt changes in tempos, expression, interpretation, did I say dynamics? Loud or soft kind of stuff. Yeah, and you have to rehearse the pieces and teach the pieces to the orchestra. You have to select the pieces too, and we're a board situation, so we get together and talk about what programs we want. Do we want like an all orchestral type program? Or do you want to bring in what they call a headliner? Like we have the Chicago group coming in January. We do the youth concerts, and we try to, we do theme that out. So we got to figure out what themes we want for the coming years. Matter of fact, I'll be having that kind of meeting before I leave day for tomorrow for next year. I mean, this year's all set. We've already done the Halloween one, but there's a lot of planning involved, and you have to learn the music yourself and practice conducting it, study the scores, and develop your own interpretation of the piece. And they would they'd fall apart or just slow down to crawl. Right. And it's your job to cue people and bring them in. Mm-hmm. Just sometimes their counting could be off, or they just need a reassuring gesture to know it's time to kind of, oh yeah, I'm in the right place. You can listen to the same piece by several conductors and get some very different, extremely differing interpretations of the same piece, and also the guest artist. So that's another thing you have to coordinate with a guest artist in most cases, a soloist. And how do you want, you have to ask them how they want to do these pieces and learn their interpretation. Some of my scores got really marked up after doing the pieces 3 or 4 times. Okay, well, wait, now is that this one this time, or is that the previous one? I mean, I had one where the Sinfonia Concertante, which is violin viola concerto, and I had this place where they slowed down real big, and I did it, and the guest artists I had just a few years ago, they just about fell off the stage. This is at rehearsal. Fell off the stage. I said, "Didn't you want that slowed down?" No, oh, I would do that. I said, "Well, the last person I did." So I said, "Okay, we'll just keep going here." So there's that interpretation on top of your own, and then you have to meet with them before you actually start rehearsing and say, "Okay, how do you want this? How do you want this to go?" Kind of thing. And then if you'd have a headliner like we had the Forte tenors, Michael Mark Murphy, all that, you're dealing with big sound companies coming in, and they've got to get their mics set, and the monitors have to be ready. And the Forte tenors actually was conducting with a click track.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had little earphones in, and that is really hard to do because you can't schmooze any, and because you get off from the click track and then you got a mess, because they had like background. They kind of had like an orchestra that reinforced us. We were playing along with each other, kind of thing, and so there was no room for deviation at all. You had to stay right with them. No, it's the only time I've run into this. Wouldn't be surprised if it does become a trend, because like with these tenors, when they're holding a real high note, it can only be so long. If a conductor holds it too long and they crack or something, they had all that just all calculated out. You could hear the voice come into your earphones on a fermata or a held note, and you hear 2, 3, 4, and then you know to go on, kind of thing. So you're kind of on pins and needles at certain places, but at this level of orchestra, you seldom are just playing or conducting easy, straight tempos that don't change. Even the Halloween concert we just did, the medley that we did at the end, the Harry Potter, well, that has 3 or 4 songs. So each song's at a different tempo and different meter and all that. And the narrated piece is very difficult. You got to coordinate with the narrator now. And March the Scaffold wasn't hard for me. That was pretty straightforward. But it's not like we're conducting Susan marches. When I graduated from Eastern with a master's, I went to Abilene, Texas, and taught at Cooper High School for a couple of years. Played principal cello in the Abilene Philharmonic. Then I decided maybe I didn't want to be a teacher, and came to Odessa, worked there for a couple of years, but I also kept up my playing, played in the Odessa Symphony. Decided I wanted to go back to teaching, then I moved to Alamogordo and taught there for 3 years, and had the Honor Orchestra of New Mexico. The last year I was there, and we performed at New Mexico All-State. Then I went back and got my doctorate, to get my doctorate at Arizona State. That second year I was there, I taught at a high school in Tempe or the Phoenix area, and really, really good players. It was all right to say they were a Mormon section of town. Yeah, the Mormon community was close to the Mesa area, and there's a big temple there, and they're very, very supportive of the arts. They have arts families, and their kids usually are in the arts, and so I was in good shape there. And my dissertation was kind of centered around teaching high school orchestra, so I got to try out the things that I had my dissertation with these kids. And they went from playing maybe like 7th grade literature to taking a top rating at the state level in a year, so I did quite well. Then I moved to Pennsylvania, Bloomsburg, and took a position at Bloomsburg University, which is one of the 14 state universities. Very reminiscent of Eastern, but like twice as big. But the architecture's identical.
Really?
Same architect, but add a few hills and trees, you know, some real big hills actually. Yeah, I conducted a university community orchestra there. So we had people from town as well as, they call it a town gown orchestra. And also had a chamber orchestra for about 20 some odd years there. Then retired 2 years ago. Semi
Yeah.
retired because I still conduct the orchestra here. They may have to take me out there on a wheelchair before it's over, but I don't want to ever give this one up.
Oh, wonderful. Well, we hope you don't.
Well, this orchestra, I always said, this is the fun stuff. This is, you know, you can enjoy doing this. You're working with. I had good players in Pennsylvania, but I also had some people that were not as good. And here, it's just they're all play well, and this is just doing the fun stuff, you know, not having to worry about who shows up to rehearsal and this one didn't come or they lost their music. You know, you don't have to do too much in the administrative area. Well, I enjoyed Melissa Mars, who came here, and she has ancestral roots in Hobbs. Her grandparents lived here.
Right.
They were our neighbors. Therese Valdoria, who was just here, not even quite 2 years ago. She was very good. And the headliners have been a lot of fun. Michael Martin Murphy was a blast, and Riders in the Sky, those guys. And I guess the Beatles were kind of good.
Oh, that was fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just they made us sit there and watch them put a drum set together for 45 minutes.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, you get that. And of course the tenors, I like them. But, that was my third time to work with them, because my last year at Bloomsburg, I did a concert with them.
That particular group.
The exact group. Well, no, not exact. There was one different.
Okay.
But yeah, that group, yeah. And we did a concert right around Christmas. And then at the first year after I retired, we did a program at our fair, the Bloomsburg Fair, which is an enormous fair. I mean, they bring in like 400,000 or 500,000 people in a week. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. It's an old fair. It was like the 160th anniversary of this fair, and big names come in. So we did that. The concert you heard here in Hobbs, we premiered it there. That was the first time they had ever done that second half for an audience.
Really?
Yeah, and they were nervous, so they didn't know how the audience was going to take it, because they typically just do, you know, traditional, the PAYZs and the pop stuff from the 60s and 70s. So they didn't know how they were going to take it. But one of the tenors is from Bloomsburg.
Really?
The real tall fellow, yeah, Sean and his mom and our gym buddies.
Really?
Yeah, his dad and brother are physicians in Bloomsburg. So he sings at the Met a lot. And he's been in Europe and everything. And he just discovered his voice in high school.
Just develop it.
I think he went to Michigan as a trombone player. I'm ready. I'd love to have him.
I know.
I've actually met him. Two, and one isn't. My daughter is the oldest, and she's been a music teacher in the Philadelphia area, but now she just started as middle school choir director. Even though really flute was her thing, but she sang in choir. Played cello. I don't know why, but sax. I mean, you know, when she went to college at where I taught, both kids did. They call it free tuition university. So the poor thing, she was in all of my ensembles and a bunch of others, and so she's very well rounded. And My son lives in Harrisburg area and works for a distributing company. They're kind of the middle person for places like Walmart and the big stores, and take care of buying and seeing products are delivered to these big stores. So they're a middleman kind of company.
But he's not into music, huh?
He loves music, but he DJ'd for a while, and he loves. Don't ask me the music. BPM is one. I don't remember all the names of the categories, the subgenres, but he's very good at that. I mean, he does his own mixes and stuff, and I'll hear a DJ doing something, and I think they're fine. No, this is bad, and that's bad. So he's got some musical genes in him. Yeah, I tried to teach him cello, and that didn't work.
Didn't work.
Well, he could do it, but just parents should never teach their children, because they act up, and you'll unload.
Exactly.
You'll unload on them. Well, the concert, right around when my mom passed, my daughter had flown down, and she played cello in that concert.
Oh.
Yeah, so that was special. She sight read the concert.
Really?
Yeah, because she just gotten in. It was so quick and everything, and she couldn't take off work so easily, or take off a lot of days. So it just actually was just an afterthought. And I think we could get a cello for her, and we did. She sat down and played. Yeah, if they'll let me. I'll be like Von Carrion. They had to literally carry him up with the Vienna Philharmonic and sit him on a chair, and he'd conduct.
Well, good.
So, yeah, this is a real blessing to get to conduct this group. I had always aspired, after I got out of Eastern, was to come back here and teach orchestra. Well, they did away with the program before I could get very far in the degree. So to get to come back here and conduct an orchestra, not only an orchestra, but a really fine orchestra, is such a blessing. Well, the orchestra, the string instruments, violin, viola, cello, and bass, and string orchestras can exist without winds, but when you put together with winds, you have a symphony orchestra. Whereas a band or a wind ensemble is only wind instruments. Mm-hmm. Maybe a string bass player, but it's just all winds. And so.
Winds, and then they have horns.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean by winds. Brass woodwinds, percussion.
Right.
And they do the marching and concert stuff. I was in band in high school here. I was drum major a couple of years.
Oh, were you?
Yeah. And
But there's different material.
Oh, the repertoire is very different.
Exactly.
It's a younger medium, and they play more contemporary music. And if they do anything that is from what they call the common practice period, the Baroque, classical, Romantic period, it's transcriptions or arrangements of orchestral pieces. Mm-hmm. And it's hard for them to do that, because it's hard to get the same articulation as a string instrument. Yes. I mean, they can pull it off with some pieces, but if there's pizzicato, which is plucking the string. Right. I've heard one of the finest it was Army. It was Pershing's own Army band do something that had pizzicato. It was like plop, plop
Really?
instead of ting. So it's just hard to do with the wind instrument. So that's the difference, and you really need somebody. It's a separate specialty to know how to play a string instrument. So you need a string player specialist to teach. There's a town next to where I live that it helped having a principal who wanted it really bad, but it took an angry mob of parents at board meetings to get an orchestra program in, and they still have it. And they have some kids that play really well coming up. It's a small town, maybe 10,000, 15,000 people, but still have an orchestra program. I would have been in band and played saxophone.
Okay, but you would have had a different career.
Yeah, I wouldn't be an orchestra conductor at all. No. Mm-mm. And I had a great teacher at Eastern, and he had been a cellist in the Pittsburgh Symphony and a professional conductor in the Pittsburgh area. So I had some really good teaching. And he and I used to be stand partners in Midland, Odessa sometimes, and he played cello also. And I'd get a cello lesson without him saying a word, just being right next to you. So I just saw him a couple months ago. I said, I learned more from you than any other teacher I had, probably, or one of the most. I don't want to tell Joyce that. She taught me lots too.
Yes,
Well, that foundation, piano foundation,
Yes.
is just invaluable. So she played a huge, huge part in my life too.
Sure.
But he took over for her. Yeah, we have something hopefully for everybody,
Yes.
and we have all different kinds of music at each concert's. That should appeal to somebody. I mean, some people have very narrow taste in music, but I bet we could tap into that at some point, you know, like with the Chicago group and the Beatles and all those guys we had, and the Forte Tenors. They did a lot of songs that are currently on the charts. But yeah, really our main mission is to bring classical music into the community. So we do that. We also teach through the youth series. I mean the youth concerts. So we do a lot of roles. Our plan is next year is to go to 4 concerts with the orchestra, but 3 of the smaller ones, you know, that we sponsor, but the orchestra doesn't play on them. So, we're branching out. You know, with that 4th concert will be probably a floating theme, like I think we were playing a Christmas concert next year, but the year after that it might be a chamber concert or something. So we don't want to get locked into one format in that concert. We want to let it be versatile. So, so come to concerts. We have something for you. Be open-minded.